We're calling to order the school building subcommittee. Roll call. Mark McKinnon.
Present.
Audrey Bober. Mark Garceau. Kristen Lund. Dan Lathrop. Steve Marone.
Here.
Cindy Kirchhoff. And Christian Federico.
Here.
Yeah. First thing, approval of minutes from May 28th, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a second? Do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah. All those approve?
Aye.
All those oppose?
I abstain.
Okay. Public comments? There are no one from the public. Approval of invoices. We have a few. And I will read them out. Ask for a motion to accept and a second. The first one is change order number 11. The tower construction for Duns Corners Springbrook Elementary School in the amount of $32,315.62. This change order includes the following: CP 072R DSES added light fixtures in cap and lobby, $16,227.90. CP 076 DCES additional reglets and end caps, $1,596.84. And CP 079 SBES FA revision, $15,490.88. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Add services for DBVW Vortex Inc. to provide additional asbestos consulting services at Duns Corners Elementary School. Estimate of $13,200. Motion to approve.
That's the additional asbestos.
We had new pavement this summer as well.
Okay,
The second floor hallway in various classrooms.
okay, and that, okay. Motion approved, second, so moved.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
Apparently I can't hear, so.
Okay.
Any questions, comments? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passed. Next one, change order number 3 to O&G Industries for State Street Elementary School in the amount of $1,155. Change order includes the following previous approved: PCO 013 PR-16A to upgrade to Verdon Clock Series 2, $1,155. Motion to approve
So moved.
and second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Next one, change order number 4 to O&G Industries for State Street Elementary School in the amount of $30,300.20. This change order includes the following previously approved: PCO 007 PR-16 to relocate sinks and hand dryers, $990. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Invoice number 3. TSKP invoice 230601-22 for professional services for SSES through May 31st, 2025 in the amount of $12,678.47. Total bill to date, $160,464.24, and 85% of the total contract. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Tower Street construction application payment number 11 for Duns Corners in Springbrook through May 31st, 2025 in the amount of $822,095. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve?
Did you say Tower Street?
No.
No, tower construction.
Tower construction.
did make that.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. So all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Next one. O&G Industries, application for payment number 9 through May 31st, 2025, in the amount of $882,136.73. All those, motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
Sorry.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Prime Consulting Testing Inspection Services, Duns Corner School, and State Street, and Springbrook through April 30th, 2025, in the total amount of $58,805. Invoice 23231, Duns Corners, $10,995. Invoice 23232, State Street, $13,380. Invoice 23230, Springbrook, $34,430. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
On to Collier's Project Leader Commissioning Services, Duns Corner School and Springbrook through April 30th, 2025, in the total amount of $2,806.25. Invoice 1060351, Duns Corners, $1,782.50. Invoice 1060349, Springbrook, $2,639.28. Invoice 1060350, State Street, $856.78. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
Sorry.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? On to the next one. Duns Corner School invoice 21, OPM services through May 30th, 2025, in the total amount of $24,670. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
And second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And that is it.
That is it.
That's it?
Just
Yeah.
it.
We'll just go so quick. Okay, next one. Owner's project manager architect update.
Absolutely. John, would you like to start with State Street?
I can do that, sure. Did you
Yeah.
say Ashley wasn't?
She's not coming. I'm gonna.
Okay,
I'll
you're
give
gonna
a
do that.
presentation, but we have to go ahead.
All right. So just a brief overview, kind of what we've seen to start with. Thank you. Again, where we are, June 11th, we stay on schedule. O&G is doing a schedule update very soon. We were kind of expecting an any day now kind of thing. This is just their critical path schedule updated from the beginning, so that we can see some of the key milestones along the way. But again, looking at from everything we understand about the project, we do understand that we're still on target for April of next year for the building construction to be wrapped up, and then and then move in over the summer and demo and rework phase 2 from July to November of 26. So no change on the schedule side. Again, just we will use this as kind of keeping everybody oriented and up to date as to starting with the construction site, since it's getting more and more real that there is a new building forming out here. You can see some of the photos, and these are even a couple days old, but they've completed a bit more of the roof sheathing on this side of the building, some more of the wall sheathing. They've got more of the trusses. The trusses were all laid out here, and they've started the trusses on this western side of the building now, working their way back in towards the middle. So again, some of the last looks up before the sheathing went on this section of the building, but you can see some of that, all those roof trusses up there, and then some of the areas where they've been pouring concrete, the last couple floor slabs to get the concrete placement. That's kind of in the middle. This is where this open atrium and stair is going to be in the middle of the middle of the heart of the school. And then looking at the gym from, again, from the east, from Hollis, where the large openings are. And they've got more of these openings framed out now all around the building. So starting to take form, take shape. You can get a sense of the overall volume of things. One action item that we do have for this evening, and I do want to go through a little bit of it, and I just use this image again because you can see the extent to which we have a good amount of roof up here. So it's a construction change directive. I know we've had a few of those come up on Dunn's Corner and Springbrook. This is the first one here for that we're putting forward, and really what that is, it's the owner initiating a change directive to the contractor so that they can proceed on schedule. A lot of the reason why this has come up in this direction is we want to make sure that with the roof sheathing that's going on already, that we can make sure O&G keeps moving on the roof and getting that weather tight and enclosed. So to that end, what we're looking to do is there was an RFI prompted review of the overall roof assembly. There was some review and discussion about the submitted product with manufacturers and contractors to basically come up with what is now the optimal roof condition approach. The design team did issue a letter, and there was a meeting that followed last week to prepare for this. The letter was sent to the building committee chair, and I'll just share it with everybody here so that you all have a paper copy of it. Not expecting you to kind of read it all right now, but I'll just give you an overview of what that was. You want a printed copy?
No, unless I'm finishing that.
All right, I know parts. So what we're talking about is the addition of a vapor barrier directly above the roof sheathing, and we'll show what that looks like. Well, the construction change directive document here, we're using basically the extent is we're looking to provide the vapor barrier on the roof sheathing and the value of $7,700. In an earlier proposal, we had gotten some pricing from O&G. They had done some revised pricing. As of the job meeting yesterday, they were gonna do some, try to do some inner workings to try to pin down that cost. But at this point in time, we're going with what was provided as part of that initial proposal earlier for labor material plus some markup for the sub and O&G's markup. That came to a value of $7,700. On the right side here is a detail from the construction documents, basically showing the fact that right now we've got this typical roof assembly, and one of the things we're going to point out on this as well is a little bit of where this direction should go based on the content of the letter. But basically, we've got that red line there is showing where the vapor barrier is right now on the wall system. So to add the vapor barrier to the roof directly above the sheathing is basically that red dash line. That puts the vapor barrier on the condition side, because we're conditioning effectively. The letter talks a lot about the intentional conditioning of the occupied space, but then the residual conditioning of attic spaces above that, so that they're all part of the climate controlled envelope. And then you have the vapor barrier, and then you have all your insulation on the outside of the vapor barrier. That's the optimal way to do it. That's 90% of roof construction is done that way. So effectively that brings the vapor barrier in between the plywood sheathing and that first layer of 2-inch polyiso insulation. There is going to be some ice and water shield membrane above the top layer of what we call nail base insulation, because they'll need to nail the shingles ultimately into that. We're just saying per spec because when we can look at the spec and talk about it a little bit, but the ice and water shield is only at select locations at eaves, ridges, kind of like when you look at a residential roof, you can see that they use a different product to wrap the edges and sides and top of the roof. And then generally there's an asphalt membrane that gets laid down top of the remainder of the roof, and then the roof shingles go right over that. So this provides, again, optimal condition for that vapor barrier location. This is the letter, and again, just kind of giving the quick highlights on it. Describing the roof assembly, conditions within the attic as far as how that temperature control is, and then looking at the proper location of the vapor barrier for that. So overall, again, we wanted to, the driver for this came originally from a contractor, RFI, true. But we want to be able to provide, like I said, that optimal roof condition where we have that vapor barrier again at the very edge of the condition side, and you have the majority of your insulation outside of that, and that's that we believe is the optimal roof assembly. It's again the way you see this a lot more with low slope roofs, where you have a vapor barrier right over your deck, and then you have all your polyiso insulation, and then you have your top layer of membrane. And in this case, it's just taking that assembly, putting it up on an angle, and then having the roof shingles on top of that rather than a membrane.
So if we had to like boil it down to like 1 or 2 sentences,
Yeah.
like what's the decision we're making?
Approving CCD1 in the value of $7,700. Again, dollars to be sorted out as we get into it. You'll eventually have a change order.
7,700 is to move that vapor barrier from here to here?
Well, it's to add it.
Okay.
We previously didn't have it in the drawings, so that's why it's being
Okay,
added.
you didn't
and
have
that's-
a vapor barrier.
Right, we did
We
not.
need to add a vapor.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
sorry.
what about in the letter? It's 133,000.
So, well, that was part of an earlier discussion on doing a vented roof versus an unvented roof. So, the earlier discussions were to not do the vented roof. There was some concern about shingle warranty. What we found in reviewing all the shingles was that the roof shingles, mentioned both a vented base and an unvented base as an acceptable substrate. They do say, GAF, there's a lot of wiggle words in what they say about their warranties. What they said is they will remove, when there's a warranty claim on a roof shingle, they'll remove that roof shingle or up to, I think they say 2. We'll take 2 roof shingles and we'll take them back to the factory, and we will determine whether or not there was a defect in the manufacture of those shingles. So they go back and just make a determination and say, yeah, was it defective at manufacturer or not? Again, both the substrate, the vented nail base and the unvented nail base, are acceptable substrates. We've got a lot of different language from the unvented roof, that unvented nail base company, and from the shingle company, basically saying that, yes, our systems are designed to work together. But they said that if the cause of the failure of the shingle was due to it being an unvented roof base, that would void the warranty. And then they further say, if the cause of it is because it was a vented nail base, that would still void the warranty. So the shingle manufacturer is just, protecting themselves.
I think what they're saying is,
Yeah.
we'll only pay the warranty if it was because of the shingle, not because of the way it was set up.
Exactly, yeah.
So, I mean, which makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, you have in your specs, you have a workmanship warranty for, I believe 1 year from the contractor that says in the first year, workmanship is warranted. And then beyond that, you have various different
But you
manufacturer
10-year
warranties.
statute of repose in Rhode Island, so you could go back on them for up to 10.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
So where is this design out in the world that we can go and talk to somebody about how it's acting after it's been constructed?
I can find out, I can find out where this, I mean, if you're looking for specifically vapor barrier, we could,
Yeah, you said this was typical.
it is typical, yeah.
so out of the last 10 buildings you've done,
Well,
was this what,
Yeah, to
like-
elaborate, just to educate everyone here, this came about in the beginning because the Pawtucket Roofing, the installer said they had gotten a concern from their manufacturer that it was an unvented nail base. And then after further looking at it, that's when it was discussed that this attic assembly actually is not vented. It is it's by association, a condition, by its location, considered a conditioned space. And there's no venting to the outside. There's no soffit vent, there's no ridge vent, there's no louver vents. So that is what Mark, I think, is asking about, is because that's a little bit different than we're all used to seeing in New England. We all have, a lot of air going into our attic space.
And there's no access to it, correct?
And there's no access to it,
That's
which is
space.
another problem.
That we're planning to remedy with other provisions. We're trying to give you some,
Okay.
like that, like rather than have to remove a piece of sheetrock, we're trying to look at some alternatives that the fire marshal, fire chief would accept. So we're still working on that.
Am I to understand, the contractor thinks we should do this bigger?
That was their initial request.
Okay.
But we have talked to the manufacturers, we've reviewed it again with OMG. At kind of like at this level to the fact that this is how we're trying to proceed. Yeah, we didn't want to do this entirely in a vacuum and just come back and tell OMG this is what we're doing. So we did talk about it with them up until yesterday as to how we were going to proceed with this addition of the vapor barrier at that layer.
Is this 100% of the roof job?
It's 100% of the sloped roof. You have a very small amount of roof over the kitchen. That's a low slope roof membrane over that. But the remainder of the roof would be has these large gables, 3 different major elements. As I'm thinking about this, Mark, there's two other more common ways of doing this, and they were both explored and both considered more costly. One was to actually put and something we've done on other projects is a spray foam insulation, a closed cell spray foam insulation where you're just spraying the insulation up there. And that particular product does have an inherent vapor barrier quality. So that's the one time you wouldn't need to do both. But for the most part, this is polyiso insulation up here. And for the most part, the polyiso insulation, when it's got a base vapor barrier, is it performs optimally that way.
For the most part, makes me a little nervous.
Well, again, it comes down to kind of, there are a lot of variables with this. It comes down to the extent to which the attic is conditioned, and because that attic is getting residual conditioning, it is It is all part of the thermal envelope. The key elements here again are you want the vapor barrier on the cold side of the insulation and you want, or on the conditioned side of the insulation, I'm sorry. And then you want it to be continuous. And again, we're looking at getting that continuous because here it comes up the wall and then it will continue up we do show some batt insulation in here, but the walls are always treated differently. There's a formula even for composite walls where you have some insulation out, some insulation in. And this vapor barrier is actually a different product. So at the point where that batt ends, we switch over to a different vapor barrier on the roof. And as long as that's overlapped right at that spot, we have our full, you have your full vapor barrier, air vapor barrier layer, and then you have your full continuous insulation beyond that.
So if we don't do this in 20 years, what could be like a implication of not doing it?
Yeah, so the implications here are that that you could, at that point in time, there are possibilities that you could have degradation of that what am I blanking on this? But the roof sheathing layer here, you could have potential degradation of that because at that point in time, you're not separating the moisture that could be outside the building. This air vapor barrier is intended to work two directionally up here, so it would keep out anything that would potentially come from the exterior. From the inside, you won't have. There are no sources of you don't have a pool, you don't have a ton of showers. The HVAC system is designed to handle the occupants of the building and the kind of moisture that people create, but so you should have no moisture on the backside here.
The only thing is, when I read this, it sounds like it's assuming we have air conditioning.
So there is air conditioning. We've talked about that a little bit. Even when you set the set points.
Air dehumidification system.
Brings the humidity level down.
It brings the
Yeah.
humidity level down,
It
but it won't keep it at 72 plus or minus degrees. When it's 90 degrees out, it's gonna be 110 in that attic.
Well, no, we had talked about the fact that we really do need to keep a moderate amount of conditioning in there. So you will have higher set points, but you're still controlling so even if you're using the same logic.
Are we gonna have an air conditioning system in the building?
They're going to extend some conditioning into that space to
But
meet these requirements.
I thought we didn't have air conditioning in the HVAC.
Not air conditioning, but the,
I think in that last paragraph, we suggest providing some mechanical ventilation in the ductwork for the 3 attic spaces. So that sounds like it will help with the temperature and moisture, keeping that M word out of the building.
yeah.
Because if that's what's concerning, then a single, like,
Yeah.
and then
exactly.
the only part I don't understand is the cost. So I see that they want to add this piece in this last paragraph on the front page, but I don't know where the cost comes in.
When it's 77.
Yeah, is it maybe the 75,000 or is it 133,000?
No, the cost is 7,700.
Okay.
That's the cost
That's
of
the
just
cost
the
of
vapor
vapor.
barrier.
But then there's
That's
all
what
these
this
other
is.
implications.
Right, yes. There are some other implications that we're gonna make sure that everything is coordinated here.
So currently we have no vapor barrier, we have no venting to that space. We have no access to that space. I know you said you're developing
Right.
water for that. And I share Audrey's, and I think Kristen's concern too, that if we end up with the M word in there because of moisture, we're gonna have a real problem. So we need to know that this model is gonna work for us, so we need to consider other options. That's not 20 years away, that might be 3 to 5 years away.
Yeah.
If we don't have showers in the building, that's right, but the humidity here in the summer, you can,
But what,
Yeah.
what,
And you, moisture coming up from the
Right.
ground and everything there.
I mean, we have, to be honest with everybody, we have discussed this and,
Yeah.
right? We
Mhm.
discussed making it a cold roof. in bringing the insulation that you see on the outside of the roof down to the ceiling level
Mhm.
and making it like what I think we're all used to seeing, especially in our house, which we'd have a ridge vent. We can't have a soffit vent, there are no soffits, but ridge vent, maybe louvers on the end, maybe some mechanical ventilation in that space, and making that an unconditioned space. So there's no heating or air conditioning going up. Because right now in between the floors, we have one layer of gypsum on purpose, right? So that conditioning would actually move from the upper floor of the school into the attic. But that's the model right now.
Mhm.
Also, the other, there seems to be a little ambiguity in between the specifications and the drawings. And right now, and I had another conversation with them before this meeting, O&G is committed to owning ice and water over the entire building. That's the way that they interpreted the drawings, which the ice and water, then in them knowing, I mean, they are they're a fantastic company to be working with because they actually look for issues. So they were assuming the ice and water was the membrane. So they ran into the shingles, a layer of ice and water over the entire roof. And they were looking, they were bringing an ABB up the wall, the ice and water, and that would go over the roof. So that's why they hadn't called out, hey, where's your vapor barrier? Because it was
Because it
assumed
was
that was the
outside,
ice and water up over the top. So this is a little bit different than what we're talking about, because now it would just be ice and water up 4 feet. It would be felt after that, and then we would be dropping that vapor barrier down underneath the polyiso.
But so that's, we do have to kind of talk through that with O&G. That didn't kind of come up until after this was already well into the works here. It's great that that's what they're carrying, but when we look at the specs and consistent with the letter and consistent with the project specifications, that ice and water shield, again, this is just a typical eave detail. The specs say that at the eave, the ice and water shield only extends, let's see here, I think it's.
24 inches past the
24 inches.
interior
24
line
inches
of
past
the exterior wall. Yep.
Yeah,
So we would be looking for a credit back from O&G then? Because they're carrying the.
Yeah.
Roof?
we would, so that's one of the areas that would be a part of this. We would be looking to, wherever that 0.24 inches in, even if you take it horizontally, because you want more distance on the slope, then from there on up would be the asphalt, underlayment for the shingles. If that would hopefully come back as a credit that we would use to offset that, could offset this, and that will keep the roof assembly consistent with what we've outlined in the letter.
And John is referring to this as the ad for a vapor barrier, and thank you, John, for keeping this so clear. We tossed around some ideas. We just want to make sure we have the right type of vapor barrier, because obviously by not having the ice and water over the entire roof, felt is good, but it's not as good as ice and water. So we want to make sure that if any water would get through and made its way down, it can't be plywood. So we want to make sure that there is a very good layer on top of the plywood now. So we're going to be discussing that very soon. You can get that straightened out so they can keep going with the roof installation.
So either way, we need a vapor barrier up there.
Yeah.
The top layer is what ice and water shield does. It does prohibit the passage of moisture. The felt has kind of a wicking aspect where it just acts similar to it doesn't trap anything. If we did this vapor barrier and ice and water over the whole building, then we would just be trapping moisture if any of moisture ever got in there, but it would still be trapped at that point, which we don't want. We want at least one way to breathe, and the best way for any of this polyiso to breathe is to breathe out.
Well, I think if we went with the ice and water on the whole building, we wouldn't be talking about.
Here.
Yeah, we wouldn't be talking about adding this vapor barrier in it, right?
Felt you tack down and it
So we tack that,
breathes,
right.
yeah.
and the ice and water is in there, go, we're in there.
And
In
they're,
the
it's
price.
bought out right now. It's bought out in their contract.
For the whole thing?
Oh,
For the whole contract.
I mean, we would ask them to use a GAF product. I mean, standard felt is there are GAF, the shingle installer actually recommends using a something they call felt buster synthetic roofing felt, but that's what we would want to do when we're looking for them to provide a credit. At this point, I think this is where schedule comes back into it, that O&G is now kind of, you know, we've seen from the pictures, they've got this layer of sheathing up. And then that actually switches, like this sheathing is all installed by the people doing the lake gauge metal trusses. Once they release the roofer the first thing the roofer has to do is would have to get that vapor barrier up on the roof. So that's part of what's driving the schedule aspect of this is to, would be to, you know, as far as finalizing some of the logistics with O&G, that would be something we would take forward from this. The swapping, if O&G does in fact, you know, if they have the ice and water shield everywhere, then maybe when we come back with the final change order here, that allows them to say, okay, well, we had the 7,700, you know, our number was really a little higher, and then, but then you can take the credit back for this ice and water shield that we had in the scope.
And you're right, Andrew. We have discussions to be had and conversations about the mechanical venting that's suggested and conditioning, some more direct conditioning of that space.
Yeah, because I remember we had taken the AC systems out as a value.
Right.
So like, it sounds like this is assuming those are still in this letter.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
That you're.
Yeah, I mean, a dehumidification system is really air conditioning.
It doesn't cool though, I agree. We were.
Like this 72 degrees, it's gonna be 105 degrees.
Is the best bet,
Like,
the
you-
vent sheathing, that's what they're, but it's expensive? Is that what the best
No,
solution is?
no, that's not
Okay.
it's not necessarily the best.
The roof is unvented. See, that was why they wanted to go with that, because it's actually the space below it isn't vented. But if the attic was vented, you can vent it, you know, that's the idea, what we were told. And I understand what John's saying. If you know how it is, if GAF has a failed shingle, they're gonna find some reason not to.
Yeah.
To give out their warranty, you know, they're gonna say it's this, that, or the other if it is.
I mean, even if
we
you're
have
living
like
in
60
classrooms,
security things going on right now. I don't think there's been a single manufacturer that's put out a penny. So, and some of these are like 2-year-old roofs. So
Yeah.
the manufacturer's not gonna pay.
They write it so that
Yeah,
they aren't gonna
yeah.
have to pay.
The insurance company might pay for it.
Yeah.
But the
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the least of our concerns. I know in our conversations, Dr. Garso and Mark both brought up, you know, obviously the M word, right? That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Access so that they can see what's going on in that space and the cost of conditioning that space. You know, now we have heat and cooling going for dehumidification going up into that space. I don't know if anybody's been driven by this pretty big attic. Pretty big attic, so.
Plus, it'd be nice to have access to store stuff.
Mark's working on it.
we can get you access. That will send the fire chief over this.
So are you asking us to approve this plan?
We're asking for approval of construction change directive 1 in the amount of $7,700 in order to more or less keep the contractor moving with the roof design going in this direction.
One more quick.
Yeah.
O&G provided that 7,000 number?
That was, well, they provided labor and material in that overall number. They had provided labor and material in the amount of about 5,000 something. This number was developed based on adding the subcontractor's overhead and profit and O&G's markup. That includes a number of things. Which usually the markup, O&G's markup has a direct markup, and then sometimes they have some bonding increased costs.
The number seems crazy low.
I've never
Yeah.
seen
It's
that.
actually
low.
higher, I have to be honest, but
Yeah.
considering that we're looking at credit, because they're honest with us, I mean, they say that we own that.
What is,
Well,
No. there's-
what is the?
The number right now is
estimate of the credit?
18,000. That the number right now is 18,000, but it's being vetted, I have to say, you know.
Yeah, the
Yes,
number,
maybe-
there was a
maybe
revised number
yes.
presented to Deb, ourselves, and everybody yesterday. O&G had some internal squabbling about that number. And they said, if we can't get you a revised backup, go with what you had.
But
from-
they are
from
getting
last
the
week.
revised backup, so that there's, right, there's a chance it may be 18,000, but there's gonna be a credit, so I'm not really that. concerned.
It's not about, yeah, it's
I
not so
don't
much
think
about the
it's
money.
money, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
If money wasn't an option,
has Justin
what would be?
weighed in on this at
Yeah,
all?
I know.
I'm
Well,
just kind of curious, if, just
Just-
because he's usually.
we had, the vented nail base also had vapor barrier at this area. And we were trying to move forward last week. We were actually considering having an emergency meeting so that the roofer could keep going. And Justin hadn't had time to do it. So I got everything over to him and he called me and he says, "Tim, the biggest problem I have with this right now is putting the vapor barrier right above the plywood sheathing because it looks like it would trap the moisture into the plywood sheathing." But since then, we've had conversations about how if the attic is, if we keep up the conditioning enough so that there is no moisture in the attic, that barrier right above the plywood there won't be any moisture to hold in there. But that also puts the burden on the
That's a
school
big
to keep that building, like all summer, you'll have to run
There-
dehumidification. You know, at a level
Are
to,
you comfortable? No, I don't think so either. I don't think so either. I'm not, but I, look at you because. I'm sorry.
That part doesn't impact this though, right? Does this and that, are they two separate conversations that we're having? I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
really.
Not really. In order to maintain, I mean, I'll just say that if the building is truly shut down for more than like a month at a time in the middle of the summer, then we really have a whole different issue. But if the classrooms are set back to 80 degrees or 82 degrees or something where they're set back to a certain temperature, a certain humidity
But we
level,
don't have air conditioning.
you have the ability to condition these spaces year round. That was part of the entire design parameter.
No, I don't think we do.
You can't control the temperature, right? You can.
I think we
take-
we have dehumidifiers, but I don't think we can control the temperature in this building.
I'm pretty sure.
Didn't we do the value engineering and take out?
That changed the system, but it didn't change the ability to condition the air. It changed it. The value engineering was only to switch from, and now I'm blanking on it, but it's still a DOAS-based direct outside air exchange based system that allows you year-round conditioning.
So if you have a tight space, you're not getting in, all the air coming in and out of the building is going through the dehumidification system. So maybe
Right.
100 degrees up there, but you're only gonna be like 10% relative humidity.
Okay,
That's assuming it's tight and operating correctly though. So yes, it'll be really hot up there, but all the air in and out of the building goes
It won't
through
be humid.
dehumidification. It won't be humid, right?
okay. Cause yeah, I'm good. I just, if we talk percentage of humidity, that's good.
But temperature, there are temperatures noted, which I don't think.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. If none of that references relative humidity, it references temperature.
I've
It
been,
does, well, it says keeping it below 60%.
yeah.
That's your key, keeping it below 60.
So you're saying this will keep it dry, not necessarily cool, but dry.
Dry.
And expense, but I just want everybody to realize that, right? For everybody.
That is my concern.
Having to run it,
Yes.
right, so are we comparing the expense that will be?
They're running models to determine what the temperatures have to be kept at, and this is all electric building, so it's electric heat as well, so the electric is not going down. That's one of the concerns I have with utilities.
Yeah, we have. Justin's with your engineer, he says.
Justin
yeah.
is with the engineer and State Street School has the air conditioning.
So,
Uh-huh.
We had this conversation.
That's not the way we were told. It's not how I remember it. Me either.
Yeah, good.
Well, not good unless we really know. Like,
This was designed to be a pretty airtight building with a full round of conditioning on the inside. And then, and that's why we were going with this approach. Like I said, if there's a big change, and even if you set your classrooms to 80 degrees, 82 degrees or something like that in the summer months, so that you're, so that the airspace up here is still getting that residual conditioning. It's 85, and as long as it's less than 60% relative humidity, you have a conditioned building with a tight envelope. And
John, just to humor us with one last item, and you've done a wonderful job walking us all through this.
Yeah.
Can you tell us why you recommend getting away from what O&G thinks they own right now, which is the ice and water over the roof?
okay, so ice and water shield is not a cure-all. And years ago, there was kind of a bell curve life of ice and water shield. It is a moisture restricted product. It's most usable. Mostly the reason why they created it was to prevent the moisture that actually sits right on the roof because of ice dams at the edge of the roof. And in this detail, we wouldn't really have that. We have some snow guards, so you would probably have some ice or snow building up at the base. So it's designed to keep that ice and snow from just penetrating through and affecting the roof substrate. It doesn't wick like asphalt. If we did the whole thing in asphalt, it would wick moisture up, down, everywhere. It would start to wick the moisture. It would start to heave the shingles. It would degrade the shingles because they stayed wet a lot longer. Ice and water shield is intended to be used in locations that will see a buildup of ice and snow in our northeast weather conditions. There was a push at one point in time to say, well, it's so great, let's use it everywhere. So they started using it everywhere. Not with a roof that has an insulation like this, but they would use it on just your typical residential construction. And what they realized was that was a big no-no, because if you had an unconditioned attic and you had it on top of plywood, it was starting to just deteriorate the plywood. It was trapping the moisture right below the plywood and letting that degrade. So then everybody came back to terms with, okay, now it seems like the ice and water shield, everybody realized ice and water shield has its place, and that place is at the eaves and edges and valleys where you're going to have that buildup of ice and snow. In this case, it still would be trapping, it would be creating a vapor barrier on the cold side of the insulation, which is a trap that actually traps moisture against the insulation. So we just don't want that. Having a vapor barrier outside the insulation is not necessarily a good idea. It's better to have it on the conditioned side of the insulation. And I think, and yes, we can get into, like I said, we can get into the idea of what felt should they be using, and we're going to ask for this GAF felt as opposed to and just standard felt. So that way it's consistent with the shingle manufacturer's request, because we have been looking at that between the manufacturer of this product, the insulation layer that has some plywood on top, it's called the nail base, and the shingles say that, yeah, you want to use what they call synthetic felt up there. So we're looking at, we'll ask O&G to say, okay, let's consider that as opposed to standard felt up there.
I guess the only other question would be, as we go forward, and this is something we all have to talk about, is that venting we're talking about. is there a possibility we're gonna do ridge venting, something that might, affect the construction that's going on right now, but that's a conversation.
No, we would, yeah, but we would keep the rest of this roof as designed, and anything that you want to do as far as bringing some air up into that space and intentionally air, I think the way the letter describes it is just bringing it through some registers or grills or diffusers just to allow it to mitigate, to transmit a little more directly, and then having it on at least one exhaust fan so that you're taking conditioned air, we're not taking any outside air. And then we're conditioning, we're just looping it through the space to keep some motion up there and to, to take that temperature delta, say in the wintertime, where we were saying it's gonna be about 63 up there, you're now getting it up to about 65. So you're just getting it closer to those temperature set points. So that and access are the two things we'll continue to look at for the attic space.
Wonder if we should wait until we know for sure.
Well,
I don't really care.
I understand that we want to stay on schedule, but it's more important that we have the quality and something that's gonna last and we don't end up getting screwed in 2 years.
No, for sure on what?
I don't
So
think
we don't end up with mold in 2 years.
I don't think we're sure about the conditioned air
Well, we do know that we're gonna have dehumidifiers, and
I
I
know
think
that.
I
I
think,
understand that.
but that's what's going to, from my understanding, that's what's going to keep it's not gonna keep it.
Right, but the challenge is, if it's 85 degrees in the building and we have dehumidifiers running, but it's hot as hell, so they open some windows.
There's
And,
nobody in there.
Yeah.
That was the whole point,
The
is that we're not.
They only open about.
Okay.
there's only one window per classroom that opens.
right,
No, I already said that, so what happens when you open all the windows? Can't, all the windows.
yeah, that's.
Well, I sure hope we do have air conditioning.
Yeah, I mean, dehumidification is air conditioning. It runs, there is a condenser that's gonna run, and it's gonna be, it's not quite like this, but it's gonna be.
But
gonna
that's
be
not what
creating-
we think about it when
Right.
you're saying, yeah, you know that, but
Right.
when you think dehumidifier, we think of something different.
Yeah, it's not like your basement dehumidifier that's just sitting there with a bucket of water. It's coming out of the building entirely.
Do we know the square footage of that attic space?
Square footage of this floor space of the attic, well, it would be about the size of the building, or the footprint of the building, which is less than 40. What did we have for the footprint? 37,000? And then technically, I guess you could take the gym, well, I guess you have to take the gym as. So
Yeah, that's.
my recollection was that we had that, if you take like the footprint of the building, I guess we could take off the cafeteria too. So maybe about 32,000 square feet.
Square feet and then
Yeah.
you do height.
Yeah, and I'm just estimating.
And I think another
You're trying to
thing
get
we
down
have
to the
to
volume.
ask ourselves is, what's the alternative?
Well, that's what I was gonna say before. I'm not thinking that there shouldn't be anything done, obviously, but is this enough? That's,
But again, what's the alternative?
I don't know.
I mean,
Is there an alternative? That's why before I was saying like, and I know money is enough, but if it wasn't,
Well, I mean, we really can't go into it if money wasn't enough. It is.
well, I know, but are there other options?
Well, yes, but we can't say regardless, we have to, within our budget.
I mean, I think I'll come back to kind of the original notion is we're trying to come up with an optimal solution here. Given all the parameters and all the design assumptions to date for this building, and this is the optimal solution.
Can you go up the one slide before this where
Yeah.
the original detail?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same detail. I just wanted to make sure you understood that. And the wall, this is where the wall vapor barrier was.
And it was designed like this, and this was meant the conditioned space, this met all of the requirements?
Yeah, walls are different. Walls have a lower R value to start with. And then the code allows you, again, we're using some of the baseline code information, but ultimately we did the energy model for the any chips approval and RIDE approval and all that. But but this wall assembly as well, met and exceeded your the requirements, for that through the energy model.
Are you looking at the? Sure.
I'm just gonna put it out one more time, more
Yeah.
than the integrity of the shingles or potential avoiding a warranty or anything. I'm more concerned about the possibility of moisture getting in that space. We have to deal with the fact of that, and if the barrier is gonna address that, fine. If not, it's gonna continue to be a concern.
Right.
And the person who's in charge of making sure that happens is not comfortable. That's what makes me.
On more dollars and cents. We can make that work. It's going to be how much does it cost us to make that work?
Yeah, I think that's probably, I don't doubt that the building hasn't been designed to accommodate the heating and cooling and conditioning requirements. It's just, I don't think we were considering the cost. Yeah,
Just gonna be able to keep that space dry, bone dry.
Mhm.
And be able to access it.
I think that's where our next two steps are: access and making sure that there is some, I'll call it kind of mechanically assisted ventilation up there for just to make sure it's getting air movement, if nothing else.
and the original design didn't have this, so this was noticed when we started looking at it closer.
Right,
That was your, okay.
right, yeah. No, I mean, I'll admit, this is a lot of good thinking so far from the contractor, bringing up initially the idea of venting versus unventing. I mean, we've done some projects where we've done vented roofs and unvented roofs. They just have some pluses and minuses. This one was unvented from the outset. It's with the inclusion of the vapor barrier, it just ensures that you have a consistent vapor barrier, keeps all of your conditioned space conditioned and humidity, keeps the humidity at the levels that the systems would be designed for.
So what happens if we do this and then the first real summer comes and it can't keep that air cool enough or dry enough? What happens? Is it too late?
No, I think that would probably come into the situation of we would have to look at the mechanical system to figure out, do we need to adjust some of those set points a little bit, or do we need to provide a little more airflow up there? I think there's some minor tweaks that can happen in that first year or so. One of the things we haven't talked a little bit about is the first year. Luckily, we're almost finished with all the concrete. A lot of the wood product that's going on is coming on now at the peak of the summer. There's going to be a lot of drying that happens this summer, which is great. And then most of these vapor barriers and things are going to start coming on as we get a little later in the summer. So that's going to let your building dry out. A new building does need to dry out for sure, based on the inherent products and materials used. So we've got a good amount of time for that to happen. So your first summer is theoretically an unoccupied summer, summer of 26. And that will be a good time to test all of this and get everything just to the right values and have it all working so that come September, it's ready for students, teachers.
but, Mark McKinnon, you did say that you can monitor it and make adjustments. It's just a question of cost, maybe effort, right?
These systems we're gonna have to run 24/7 to make this model work.
Right.
A few years or even the first year, something happens to one of those units, how long do I have to fix it before the
Yeah.
temperature's
But-
above?
This school is designed that those need to be working all the time.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's not just the attic, the whole school.
Correct.
So it's not, this isn't just an attic thing. The whole school needs those.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd rather have mold in the attic than in a classroom. No, we want mold anywhere.
Yeah.
We don't want it.
Yeah, but like, it's gonna hit,
Yeah.
like, the whole school has to have those running all the time. So,
Yeah.
Right.
I think we're looking for a guarantee on something that absolutely can't be 100% guaranteed, no matter what system you put in. I mean, my limited experience with things like that is that they're never going to say 100%.
Well, no, I know.
But I think that's what we want 100%, especially because it's this, we're putting a lot of money in. Kids are in these buildings. We don't want a mold situation. You know, whether it's 5 years, 2 years, 20 years, we don't want that coming in. But I think at this point, we probably need to move forward on this because this is an answer to a problem that is existing now with the building construction. And unless we have something better, I mean, again, something better probably wouldn't have the same guarantees either. I mean, I think it's reasonable for us to say, yeah, we want a guarantee, but they can only guarantee so much. And it sounds like as long as everything's working, we'll be okay. And if something doesn't stop working, we may still be okay. We'll just have to make sure to fix it right away. Right? I don't think we can really get an issue like this resolved like we want. So we're faced with an issue. Should we do this or should we don't? And right now, not doing anything would it just fail? It isn't, I mean, it's an option that has consequences that are real and will happen.
So,
So,
I mean, CCDs they're never really the ideal situation. And usually that means that the only reason you're bringing a CCD forward is because we've got a potential, again, OG's going to put forward an updated schedule soon, but they had a date for when they were ready to start the roofer and we've already missed that. So we want to just make sure we can help them recover the date that they were intending to have the roofer start.
okay, so why don't we put forward a motion to approve the roofing assembly barrier, CCD 01 for State Street School in the amount of $7,700. Is that, do I have a, motion?
you think that's the right call?
Michael?
Yeah.
To put forward a motion?
No, I
No.
want to know what your professional opinion is.
At this point, I don't think we have a lot of options. I wish we had been fully aware of the situation before now, so that we could have considered what to do before this point. But at this point, we'd have to be talking about redesigning the entire space. And I don't think we have that time. And things are in motion. We have the roof going up. So I don't think that this is going to, I mean, everybody can keep thinking about this and we can certainly talk about it at the next meeting. It's just going to keep them moving forward with the roof and putting up this vapor barrier that we still have to come to an agreement on. But if somebody has a better idea on the actual assembly and conditioning it and venting it, whatever access, we can certainly talk about that.
Make a motion to approve this with the contingency that we keep looking at solutions.
Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
No.
So I believe the motion passed. On to something.
That's it.
That's it.
I think we're gonna say, that's it.
Make sure we get all your questions.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Yeah.
You just, yeah, I know. Just got me put through it. Ashley's now with us, so I'm gonna do his little presentation, but first of all, we do have an action item here for you to consider. I know Justin's not here tonight to talk about, I don't think we had talked about the summer schedule, but last year we did go to one meeting per month. And plus I know that even if we don't do that, I mean, last week we just squeaked by with a quorum for, I think, 45 minutes. Last meeting. So I'm thinking it might be a good idea to increase the approval threshold of the change order review group. Just so that we don't have to be trying to schedule.
Do we have a quorum right now to vote on the
Yeah.
approval date?
Yeah, we
I did a quick cut, yes. There.
We have a very responsible group on this change order review group, and I'm sure they'll take whatever's brought to them very seriously. And of course, if there's a meeting and we can wait, we will do that. But I'm suggesting we increase that threshold from 10,000 to 25,000. And then if something comes up, we can keep everything moving, especially, we have Dunn's and Springbrook. I don't expect anything like that coming up on either of those, but just in case we ran into something, we have to be done in obviously 20
yeah.
seconds. So
What's the total contingency available?
right now,
2 million.
right, we are
Is-
at
1.8.
right, just around 2.
Right around 2 million.
Yeah, we're right around 2 million.
So I think the 25,000 is appropriate.
Overall,
So,
right?
so this is the motion to approve the threshold from 10,000 to 25,000 for what group?
The change order review group.
And Justin was good with that?
Yeah, I ran it past him. He didn't say no. I said that's what we were gonna plan on doing.
Okay, may I have a motion to increase the threshold from 10,000 to 25,000 for the change order review group?
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
Yeah, I'm sorry, before you vote, I'll just tell you, just to qualify that, we will be running everything past Dr. Garza and Justin before it got to that point, so.
And is this also only for summer months?
Yeah, we can certainly rescind it, yeah, after that, when we get back to regular.
I mean, this change order was technically under 10,000,
This
but
could happen.
they're still coming, even if, like, it's just,
Yeah,
yeah.
And we don't use that,
Emergency.
yeah, we don't use that to get around this committee, and
No,
you guys don't want to
It's
talk
an
about it.
emergency.
It's
Yeah.
just, if we can't get a quorum or we can't get an emergency meeting, we have an avenue to move forward. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. Any more discussion? Motion to approve?
You already have it.
Yeah, those in favor?
Oh,
Yes.
fine.
All right.
Thanks.
Those opposed? Okay, motion passes. And we are now on to capital projects.
To Westerly Public Schools. And this, which one is it? Is the middle one?
The right button to go forward.
Thank you, sir.
Back.
Okay, we got everybody's right here. Okay, so Ashley did a nice little equation here so that everybody can see where we're at with Duns and Springbrook. We are still a little behind schedule on both of them. If you run through his math here, he is expecting them to be at around 89% complete as of the end of August, instead of 95% where we'd like them to be. We're working with them to keep them moving forward and not cause any delays to the actual use of the school. We're meeting with them again tomorrow morning to talk about this, about how anything is going on in the existing school is got to be complete and ready for the kids August 22nd. So there's a lot of, there's just a lot of scheduling and things in motion. We still have submittals coming in. We still have some change orders going on. We have added work. We have bathrooms now near the cafeteria in Dunn's Corner, the new cafeteria, so that got added. But big concerns are, and I don't know if he noted these, but here's some more progress photos. You can see it's coming along nicely. We have two big issues right now, and one is the remainder of the electrical gear at Dunn's Corner. That is due next month, if it's on schedule. So once it gets in, it's got to get installed. They've installed everything but what they're missing, so we're hoping there isn't going to be any issues. We already have the transformer delivered and installed. The septic system is installed, but that is going to be powered by the new system. So that's not gonna be switched over until we have that new system up and running. They've started the soffit and fascia washing, so that building's gonna look great once that's all cleaned and painted. They have the sidewalk in upper left-hand corner for the, and that's actually been poured now, for the bus loop sidewalk. The dumpster enclosure is going in and the exterior fencing. Inside, they've started painting. They are gonna be doing, like I said, the soffit and the fascia around the building. That's all gonna be painted and it's gonna look great. Student bathrooms are ongoing, outdoor classroom, they're gonna be starting. Then they're gonna be starting the summer work as soon as the kids are out of the school. They'll be doing the remainder of the abatement, the new flooring, and the renovations in the classroom wing. So that's gonna be the focus. We'll keep on them hard to keep focus on August 22nd to get them into the school, existing school, and then back out again. Of course, we're hoping the cafeteria is going to be ready for the first day of school. And there's going to be a lot of moving parts if that doesn't happen. But they have made a lot of progress in there. So we're hopeful that that's going to be up and running and we'll have our power. Everything's going to go great. So last year, they really surprised me. They did a lot over the summer once they owned the school and the property. So I'm hoping we see the same thing this year. Over at Springbrook, the media center is finally coming along. It's up. They've got the roof deck on. It is behind. And so is the two-story addition up here for the breakout rooms. It is a little behind Dunn's Corner, but they're getting the focus back over there. They're getting more people working on it. If it's not done, obviously it's not done. We'll bring it online as soon as it is, but we're still pushing to hopefully have that up and running for the start of school. Right now they're doing the brick, finishing that up, window installation, and the boiler replacement is ongoing, but they've already gotten in there. I believe they have the new boilers in. 2 new boilers in. Thanks. The upcoming work is the MEP rough-ins in both additions and the stage removal, the gymnasium painting, and the gymnasium flooring, which is going to be a big undertaking. And it is a different contractor than the one we have at Dunn's Corner. So this change order, Mike, did you run through this change order approval already? I don't think so, right?
We have not done the approval. I think we might have done the.
Okay, but
We
this
have
is
done
just a breakout of it, what it
Invoices,
is.
yeah.
Change proposal, they added some lights at Dunn's Corner, the cafeteria regulate, gotten better determination, the drywall sub, and fire alarm revisions. Electrical needed to add fire alarm horn strobes in classrooms, and that was from the the fire marshal. So it added up to the $33,315. But I think you already voted on that, right?
Yes.
We
Okay,
voted to
great.
pay it, yes.
Okay, so that is a moot point. That's it. Any questions on those 2 schools, everyone? No, you guys are an easy crowd tonight.
Anything else on owner project manager architect update?
Off that.
What's that? Then we're on to capital project update.
Quickly, we had coordination meeting with ATC and Tower. We are gonna be in Springbrook while they're doing their construction. We got some mini splits to install in the admin and kindergarten wings. That coordination should be very smooth. Tower should be in those areas and ATC can fly through there. Once they get done with Springbrook, they're gonna go to the middle school. Similar situation there where they get all the MDF closets and IDF closets changed. It's our big focus for summer.
Okay, anything else? Okay. Then we're on to next steps. Anyone have any next steps for us?
Can I just ask about that last paragraph in this letter about the fact that the contractor hasn't provided a schedule since August of last year? Is that that sounds concerning now?
They have been submitting, make sure I have the pure blank. I think it's 3-week look aheads. And they did submit a revised schedule towards the end of last year, but they do always an updated.
Okay, it doesn't sound like-
But they are still holding, I think they're actually expecting to do a little bit better, but they are still holding April completion. So that we could have furniture delivered in May. So we are definitely on track.
Any other next steps? No, then we move on to public comments. And there are no public here, so we go past public comments. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And we are adjourned.
Thanks very much.